company and tax and private client practitioner, joins us to bring a common sense approach to money in a world of total insanity. Let's welcome Tony D'Angelo.
All right, my good pal Tony D is joining us as he does each and every Tuesday here bright and early to wake you up. He's your beginning really to your Tuesday. Tony, good morning again. How are you?
Good morning, Lee Elci. I'm proud to be among everyone.
Thank you again for last week being part of a special day and donating that special Mickey Mantle card. So.
Oh, believe me, I mean, it's... I thought of this last night. I said, somebody's got a really nice collectible and some really good guys who have served this country are being helped. And, you know, I try to tell this all the time to people. You don't get by getting, you get by giving. And, whatever you can give, it's a small thing. And, it's going to bring a lot of joy in a lot of corners. But, listening to you this morning, Lee Elci, I think you need a little cheering up.
Okay, shoot. What do you got?
Strange, far be it from me to cheer anybody up, but was talking to our pal Michael Dante this past week.
And, great.
He was great friends with Joe DiMaggio. And he tells this story. I think Joe was a Western fan or a spaghetti Western fan. He tells this story about Michael and Joe are in Las Vegas. And, Michael's an actor. And when Joe DiMaggio says, hey, I've got a financial deal for you or something, you're all ears.
Right.
So they're in this meeting in this restaurant, and it's Joe and Michael. Of course, Joe is, incredibly recognizable, especially as he got older with the gray hair. And a drunken woman comes staggering into the restaurant, and she looks at him and she says, yeah, DiMaggio, yeah, that's right. You were married to Norma. Now, Norma, of course, was Marilyn Monroe's birth name, Norma Jean Baker. And Joe just looked at her in that classic, just stone-cold face that they'd always write about in the New York newspapers, and just dropped his fork and looked at Michael and said, excuse me, Michael, tossed his napkin on the table, walked out, checked out of the hotel. Further point that you never, ever, ever mentioned Norma to Joe DiMaggio.
Wow. You said that, you touched on this a little bit last week. They had to be he actually must have loved her so much.
Yeah, exactly.
That anything that was said about her or talked about her just made him literally have to get away. It's crazy. It's amazing.
Yeah, and really, I think the only peace he really had is when she passed on, because he finally had her. The world didn't have her; he didn't.
Right.
Very odd, almost. I'm going to use the term perverse sort of way.
Yeah, no, I could see that. You have that kind of that love, maybe that where you have to be all encompassing. It's got to be, like I always said, the way you love something as a child, where it's got to be all mine. You know what I mean?
Exactly, so. But fun stuff. But getting on to non-fun stuff, I'm still keeping an eye here on this Pazer scandal in Pennsylvania. Typically the way grand juries will move is they'll move slowly. I'm learning about this as we go.
Right.
However, one of the things that did come out this past week was that there's some issues now with private equity and housing and public housing and mortgages and things like that. There's another Lamont tie. There always is. There's always a racket. Unite Us, which is an Oak HCFT equity, which it does, made statements that they're helping the people in Louisville, Kentucky through the pandemic. I mean, we've just got to wait and see. I mean, the only way you get patience is by waiting, and this is one of those classic examples, but I'm monitoring this every day. But when you get to this, when you get to, quote unquote, issues with the pension fund and, yields and where the Treasury is and what's actually happening. Oh, yeah, and again, dead ear from anybody in the legislature. No one will come out, including, the folks coming on, this particular show. No one will come out and say, hey, this could end up in a major train wreck. Nothing, absolutely nothing. What are they talking about? What's important in Hartford? Well, we're going to talk about something which really stuck in my craw this week. Racism. racism is a public health crisis. This is a big thing. Now, this is not an original thought in Connecticut. Very few original thoughts come out of Connecticut government, but this is something actually coming down from national, coming down to, where we might at. Rochelle Walensky, who's the head of the CDC, another Butte, is very heavily into this. And this all speaks to the concept of what is known as racial equity. Now, there's two concepts, and I'm learning this as I go on. There's equity and there is equality. Equality is you and I are sitting 10 feet apart from an apple. A bell rings. You rush out. You get the apple. I don't get the apple. That's equality. We both had an equal shot at the apple. Now, equity says that when you get that apple, you've got to cut the apple and give me half. And it's basically a thing of, as you have not, if I didn't have your advantages, Lee Elci, I barely made the team, so you've got to give back to me. And it's, I think it's just a horrible, dangerous, slippery slope, because it's twofold. Number one, we're taking away achievement. We're taking away the people that we need to lead. And the other thing is, if I put myself in the position, whoever I am, that I am deficient, I am hurt, and the only thing that is going to save me, the only thing that, my only hope in this world is, Connecticut politics, let alone Connecticut Democratic politics. Man, I am in some major soup. Your ball, my friend.
So how does this affect, again, I always sort of relate it back to the guy driving the truck on the way to work today. How does this relate to that guy?
The guy driving a truck on the way to work today is working. He's busting his head. Now, say he's got a bread route or something like that. And now what you're going to do is you're going to bring up his goods and services. You're going to pump everything up to a point where he's going to struggle because he's got to give back in equity. These other people didn't have the advantage that he did, because this stuff is not like, way high up there, and it only affects the people that are there. It comes, higher taxation, higher fuel, higher costs for things.
And then they're going to take that money and do what with it? They're taking that money and then what? They're doing, investing it in communities of color? Is that
and community service and things like that. And there are two things, really how farcical this is. If you have, and I always say, if you have nothing to do, make a point to do this. Read about what happened 100 years ago in Tulsa, Oklahoma. There was a community called Black Wall Street. And in Black Wall Street, there was a gentleman. His name was O.W. Gurley, and he took 40 acres of land, and he created an economy. And he said, we're just going to build this economy, and we're going to invite people of color to come in and learn and grow and do. And it was a brutal massacre by horrible racists that ruined it. And the reason why they ruined it is it was getting too good. It's the thing of, you don't get people to do better by giving them worse. It is the stupidest thing on the planet. It's absolutely amazing.
And then over and over. But this is the tack that's taken from the progressive or the Democrats over and over again. It doesn't work.
Over and over and over again. And, another thing, and I always say, if you have nothing to do, make a point of doing this. Read about a lady called Marva Collins. Marva Collins had a school in Chicago that she started herself. She was a public school teacher in Chicago, and she said, this is a mess. This is horrible. These children aren't learning. So she rented a basement in an old building and taught 40 kids at different levels, the classics, Chaucer, Shakespeare, and, drilled, and built their self-esteem. There was something, you can actually go back and look at this. This is like in the 1970s. About 25 years ago, 60 Minutes, when it was 60 Minutes, went to the first class, because the educators, this is terrible, this is just a joke, it's an aberration, and talked to the first graduating class. Look to see what these kids did. They're in law school, they're starting companies, and the thing was, and all they said was, she told us we could do things. One girl who, quote unquote, was called retarded, sorry, about the term, I know it's not politically incorrect, graduated with a social work degree. I mean, it just bothers me as quote unquote an older male when I see what's coming up behind me. We were chatting about the year of how difficult it is, for me to get help. I would really invite, people who are saying, "Hey, this isn't right. Let's dialogue. Let's try to get, a group of people together to say." I mean, this whole stuff of, don't tell me I'm deficient. Tell me I can do something.
Listen, I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah.
I'm sorry?
No, I couldn't agree with you more. That idea of, lifting everybody up, not tearing everybody else down. It's simple, but it's exactly what you're talking about.
Well, you're creating a permanent dependent class, which is the thing that they say they don't want to do, but yet if you remove them from the equation, it'll happen by definition. Consider this. Our state, our little state here, before it became a poor and deficient state, had a thriving black middle class. They were mostly people working in the factories, and they owned homes. Look at New Haven, Winchester, Olin, Marlin, and people came up from the South. I knew them. I went to church with them. What happened to them? Where'd they go? It's like, shouldn't we be progressing from that rather than regressing?
And I feel, Tony, not to sort of take it in a different direction, because I know you're sort of concentrating on race, but I almost feel like that's happening right now with this disenfranchised scenario where people just don't want to go back to work, and like you're looking for a qualified person. I've been talking to business owners in the area who are all looking for people. They can't find anybody because people would rather stay home and get a check for as long as they can. I swear to God, I'm looking up right now at the sky. I ran into a friend of mine this weekend. I said, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Blah, blah, blah. I'm going to start doing this when my unemployment runs out." I said, "Well, why don't you start now?" He goes, "Why would I? I just get to sit home and get to make as much money as I would if I was out there working." I feel like they've disenfranchised the working class in this.
Well, and they've disenfranchised the working class, and the other thing is they've disenfranchised the higher people. One of my lifelong friends is a cardiologist in California. He was in the stratosphere in high school, just beyond a brain, but yet he was always in the advanced groups. And what has he done for years and years and years? He's been a physician.
Right.
He's made people better. He's saved lives. And now it's like, well, we can't have those groups. So, when it comes time to my golden years, quote unquote, spit cough, who's going to be there helping me if we don't have these programs? And I mean, these people are just nuts. Simple as that, and just as difficult.
Tony, good stuff. I got to run. Thank you, buddy.
Okay, thanks.